In the trades, you're only as good as the tools you have and the skills you've learned in using these tools. And in the asphalt maintenance trade, this is no different. With that in mind, we're going to cover the setup we use here at the company I work for so that you can see some price points and get an idea of the cost in that. And as well, we're going to realize the entirety of the full setup you want to pull out of the yard with when you set out to maintain your asphalt. Welcome to SealCoat Nation. So in this first part, we're going to talk about the sealer setup. We'll move on to the patch setup, and then we will touch on the rubber setup, which is a rubber only setup, which doesn't happen too often, but we will mention it because it is its own setup. So we'll begin the seal coat setup with the things that have to be bolted down. 2 tanks, 1 box, 1 melter, a handful of milk crates, and 2 propane tank mounts. If you can think of a way, or you want to talk about it in the comments on ways to make the scale smaller for a smaller business, feel free. I'd love to hear your comments. So the first thing I want to break down is the seal coat tank. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to put in whatever sealer you're going to use on the job is going to go in whatever tank you use. We use these tanks here. There's multiple tank setups, multiple ways to skin that cat for sure. With that in mind, you're going to have to pick a sealer. So we use Sealmaster, so I'm going to use Sealmaster products to describe these sealer types. Now remember, these first few that I'm going to show you are for like the really bad. I would say these are for the really bad asphalt areas. You might want to get something like a PMM because it mixes a lot of sand in, and sand's like a filler, and it won't flatten out as much when it settles. It'll stay thick basically. Or the next sealer we have here is the Master Seal. This is one of the ones where you gotta add a little sand, you add a little water. This one says to add Top Tough to it. You only gotta necessarily add Top Tough if it's a heavy traffic area. Then you got Liquid Road, asphalt based pavement coating. This one is sand only mix. So you mix it with sand. It's kind of like the first one we talked about. Polymer modified and fiber reinforced for ultimate durability. A tough aggregate filled bituminous coated provides skid resistance and lasting protection. So let me see. They're asking for the sand to be 11 to 15 mesh. So this product's actually running a smaller mesh number, so it has a little bit smaller aggregate than that first one that we had that was sand only. Then you go to this asphalt material, then this stuff you start getting eco-friendly here. This is the one that they call eco-friendly. It has aspen in it, which is a material that you can find abundantly in states like Georgia. It's just like a powder additive. It's a natural powder. The one thing I didn't like about the eco is if you have a bit of a low spot, that ends up collecting a little more material than let's say like the flatter areas of your driveway, just because of the uneven grade of the driveway in certain areas. It can maybe have a slight dip that you just don't really pick up with your eye that much. Those thicker areas will peel a little bit. They'll kind of peel up, and it's really unsightly, and then it ends up coming right off. It feels like it just doesn't stick, honestly, either as well as like a black tar sealer. But if you are in an area that doesn't allow black tar, this is one of your only options as far as keeping your price low, because this is just a water. You only got to add water to it. You don't got to add sand or nothing, and it's a fairly inexpensive way to stay off the radar of the economists. Then you got your OptiPave surface sealer. Its advantages: replenishes and values asphalt glue, just like the other one. Fast, efficient, low traffic flow, impact. Provides a deep, rich black. It just describes it just as the first one did. This is the ready-to-go stuff. You don't have to do anything to it. It's one of those pump it into your tank and go. Now, if you're not the guy that likes to mix your own stuff and try to find your own grade and save a couple dollars on your mixes and stuff, this is what you want, because you can just put it right in there, pump it in. It says it's for rows, but this is really good for neighborhoods too. It says right on here, neighborhoods, gated communities, and so it's a good product as far as keeping it black and everything. You got this, the Easy Stir, which is I believe this may come in buckets. Maybe that's why it's the Easy Stir. Simply stir, pour, and apply by squeegee brush or spray. So this is the ready to go bucket stuff. Then you got your coal tar sealer. Now this is the old school stuff. This stuff you had to add your sand, you had to add your water. It says pave gel polymer additive. You can add this polymer to it if you wanted to. And this is the stuff that has the pitch in it. It burns you. In fact, if you look down here, it even says on the bottom, disclaimer, products on this page are not available at all locations and have been banned in some cities. In fact, some of the higher end cities around here, you're not even allowed to use this stuff. So we just don't even use it anywhere. It's not, there's no need for us to, considering how many customers we have in these areas where you can't even have it, there's no sense in us even having any for the other customers. As much as I'd love to, I just love the way the stuff, it's the best product. It really is, and that's what sucks about stuff like this. All these chemicals are the best thing, man, but you can't use them. So you got the polymer added sealer, and then you got your regular coal tar. I miss those days. Getting burned. Got some stories to tell. So the other tank you're going to need is your brush box. It's a water tank, basically. It keeps your brushes wet so that in between jobs and overnight it can sit in water. You got to clean it out every once in a while. It's got a little plug in it. Just unplug it. Kind of rinse it out with a bunch of water in a safe spot, and then you keep your brushes nice and clean. They get really heavy. I promise you, they get really heavy with the buildup. You can knock that stuff off with a hammer or something. You take a risk of snapping the wood when you do this. You just got to be real careful, and also the brackets and stuff. You don't want to knock the screws loose and snap those soft aluminums. But other than that, the brush boxes, you got to keep them wet and keep them clean. The next thing you have that's on there is the melter. Now I'm going to say this before I begin. If you don't want a melter and you just want to use a pour pot, you can get like a 6-inch scraper on a 6-foot stick or a 50-inch stick, and heat that bad boy up real good with your torch and cut the bricks down enough to where you can stick them inside the pour pot and just heat the pour pot up with chunks of rubber in it. It takes a lot longer, but you don't actually have to have the melter. And if you have a bander, then you can you don't have to chop it up into small pieces either. You can chop it once, put like a half a brick in. It'll take up about a half a brick, and you can use the bander by yourself. You don't have to have somebody else with you. But we'll get into all that. The other box you're going to have, if you can afford it, is the box that you're going to use for sand, which we use this right here. It holds plenty of sand for the day. You can go sometimes even a couple days, 3 days, or whatever, without even throwing any sand in it. But that's pretty much it for that. You can throw a few things extra in there, like maybe throw a couple wrenches in there for your propanes on the side or whatever. But just remember, this is for sand. Try not to get too crazy with throwing shit in there. You're going to want a handful of milk crates. At least that's what we use to put like our buckets in, our tools in, that we're leaving hang around. Stuff like our tape, our stakes. And all these things go into the milk crates. And the other thing you're going to tie down is the propane tank mounts. You're going to screw them in somehow. And all these things that I've just mentioned are mounted to the truck. These are things that you're going to physically screw down, tie down with somehow or another to make sure that they don't go flying off during your travels. And now that we've covered the sealer and the types of sealer you can get, let's talk about the other tank and what we're going to put in that, which is the brushes. So our company, we use the big brush. We call it the big brush. That's what it's called. It's a 55-inch natural fiber. You can pick them up through Sealmaster. I think there's a couple other companies that may have them. I'm not talking about the crimped metal brushes with the black fiber. I'm talking about the kind of beige looking tannish bristles with the like balsa wood brush. There's many handles you can use too. These aren't the ones you screw in with the brush handle. These are the ones that come with the aluminum brackets and a couple screws that they screw through, and then the handle goes into that bracket and gets screwed in. So again, we use the 55-inch brushes. We like these big boys on our jobs. They get the work done quick, efficiently. We also have the cut-in brushes, which are basically 7-inch roofing brushes. Those just get jammed in. The 60 or the 50-inch, I'm sorry, the 60-inch handles. They just kind of go in, and you just twist them, give them a nice twist, and they stick in there good. Same thing with the steel metal bristle broom. That also has just twisted in the hole like that. So remember, keep these boxes wet. These are the brushes you're going to have in them. And what I'm describing to you right now is the residential setup. This is our residential tank setup. You can set it up differently for commercials, but it's basically going to be the same setup. You're just going to take a few more things with you. So the other thing you're going to want is, if you're going to have a melter, is obviously you're going to want that thing set up somewhere. So if you're not using a melter, you obviously don't have to worry about bolting this down, but you're going to want to bolt down your melter somewhere. It's not going to move. And you're going to want to have it so that the valve is sticking out over the edge. They come with handles that you can carry it with. Those handles are great for hanging your pour pots on. To heat them up, remember, you got to heat up your valve. And don't want to fill this thing, dude. Like, you don't want to fill this thing to the top. You want to fill it about 3/4 of the way at the most. So you want it to sit somewhere around 1/2 and 3/4. So fill it up about 3/4. Once it gets down about halfway, maybe a little less, you throw a little more in. But remember, these things melt down and they expand out. So don't just load this thing up till you can't do it no more and then melt it down, because this thing will be full of rubber. You hit a curb, you hit a little bump, you go around a curb, turn too fast, you're going to lose some of that rubber, and it's 350 degrees. You hit somebody's car with that stuff, dude, it's a game changer, okay? So you're going to want to make sure you do not overfill these melters. And we talked about the milk crates. They're just your average milk crate. You can pretty much get them anywhere. Get a few online, get them at the store, find out that there's a Kroger that wants to get rid of a few. There's lots of ways to get milk crates. They're very handy for keeping buckets in. Buckets fit perfectly in them. And, obviously the tools will fit nice and snug in there, along with everything else I mentioned earlier. And then your 2 propane tank. You're going to have your 20 gallons on here. You can get one for 30, or you can fit 30 gallons on here. We use the 20s. There is a setup right here I'll show that we would use the 30s on, because just getting in and out of this, trading things in and out of this trailer is just a pain in the ass. So we just we run it with 2 30s. That way we ain't got to try to carry any extra propane tanks during the day in the back of the truck or anything, because sometimes you got to throw other stuff in the back of the truck, considering how small this setup is. So there's 2 different ways you can set this trailer up for residentials. One's with a pump setup and sprayer, and one's without. The only thing you're going to need different, really, with the pump setup, besides the pump and the sprayer, is you're not going to necessarily need as many buckets. Like, we carry 4 or 5 buckets for residentials because we bucket all of our stuff. But if you had the sprayer and the wand, you could usually take the sprayer up and use it to lay out your sealer. Now, there's some jobs you can't get the rig on and that, so you're going to want to at least have at least a couple buckets in case you can't get all the way down to the end of the property with your winding hose. So here's a little look at the pump here. This is the one we actually use on our setup. We just bought one of these last year and changed it out with the old pump that we had on the 1,000 gallon. They work great, works fine. We usually run ours somewhere between 90 and 100 psi, depending on the sealer, whether it's got a lot of sand or not in it that day, or that job or that setup. The tips we use, I believe I have it mentioned in another video. I'll leave a link to the video at the end that you can go check out. It gives you a little bit more in-depth look at the difference between spraying and brushing, kind of the price differences, and is there a price difference and all that. So I'll leave that link at the end. So you will have to have your pump, you will have to have your hose, you will have to have your wand, all the connections you're going to need for that. You're going to have some way to wind it up, lock it in place. You're going to have to have some kind of winding setup. It usually comes when you go to buy your sealer stuff. It'll come. The setups typically come with you to be able to have a winder to put on your truck. So I'm not even going to put a picture of that on here. I should have something on one of these videos. Aside from that part of the setup, there really is no other equipment change. You're still going to need a big brush. You're still going to need a cut-in brush. You're still going to need all the blowers and cleaning stuff. You're still going to need a pour pot just in case you need the rubber or a bander or something. the difference between spraying and brushing is spraying is a lot quicker, and you end up using a lot less material overall, and you still coat the drive. Now if somebody's trying to save a couple bucks, this is typically the route they want to go, is getting it sprayed. If the customer doesn't care whether you spray it or brush it, you might as well spray it, because it's going to save you material and money. Now if you can pass that on to your customer, that's great. If not, you selfish son of a bitch, well then I guess you're making more money. In this one I'm going to cover the tools, basically all the hand tools and all the tools you're going to need for this, and some of the other small items. We've already covered the brushes, and so now I'm going to get into the hand tools. Now the non-related hand tools are the things that you're going to have sitting in this into this milk crate typically, which would be your hammer, your adjustable wrench, which you would use to change out your propanes. Now as you take this thing on and off, as far as these torches on and off this propane, you're going to wear out that brass fitting on there, and at that point you're not going to be able to use that adjustable wrench anymore. That's when you get your pipe wrench out, which is another thing you want to have in there. Pipe wrenches are good anyway, because your seal coat tank usually has a couple pipes or so coming out of the back of it where the sealer comes out, and in the process of turning the valve on and off and that, sometimes those things will move around and you want to be able to tighten them and everything else. So it's just good to have that adjustable wrench and that pipe wrench combo in that milk crate. Another thing you're going to want to have is a regular and a Phillips screwdriver. For instance, your brushes, the brackets on them have Phillips head screwdrivers and flatheads sometimes. If your brush head starts to come loose off of there, you want to retighten those screws down. And just kind of a lot of other things, there's a lot of miscellaneous things you're going to want to throw a screwdriver at every once in a while, I promise you. It's good to have a socket set of some kind. It doesn't have to be big. It can be something like this, where it's just a small set that you can get just a couple little things done in case some stuff breaks down, or you got to take some kind of covers off to get the things to check on, like maybe some gaskets or some rubber O-rings or something might go bad and something you can change out. There's a lot of little things you'll learn over the years of doing this that you can fix on site. So having these little tool sets is good. And now one of the most number one things you can have is the 5-in-1 tool scraper. I swear to God, this is the Swiss Army knife for the seal coater. I am not kidding. If you're a seal coater, having one of these around has probably saved your life. I don't even know how many times. So now we're going to move down to the power tools that we use. We obviously have a weed whip. This is what we use to edge the driveways and to clean up any cracks that may have grasses growing out of them and whatnot. The other power equipment you're going to have is the blower. Now this is the one we use. It's Red Max 8500 series. Really good. We've used the ones with the controller on the left. We've used the ones with the trigger on the right. They both work well. Pretty much any backpack blower will do. The 8500 series obviously is powerful and it gets the job done quick. You can really damn near run with the thing. You're going to have the gas can to power these things. So this is the kind of gas can we use right here. It's basically like a no-spill gas cap. They're really nice. You push the button, let it go. They work really nice. I'm not going to spend too much time on the gas can, but we use the 5-gallon gas cans. They hold obviously 5 gallons instead of like trying to fill up a 1 gallon every day. We actually have to fill up the 5 gallons almost every day anyway. So when you're doing a lot, you're going to need these 5 gallons. So you might as well just buy this right off the bat. It's not much more than the 1 gallon. And you won't have to buy another gas can for your crew. If it's just one truck, this thing will last you all day for all your equipment, no problem. It'll even fill up your Honda motors for your agitators and everything else you got going on, and melters or anything else. So anyway, not gonna spend too much time. Like I said, already too much time on the gas can, but I just wanted to throw a few things in there about that. You're gonna want a flat shovel for the seal coat. Now you can bring a spade shovel if you want. You're probably not gonna need it for anything. That's more along the lines of an asphalt cruise item, but the flat shovel you're going to need for one reason, and one reason only: overspill. When you have overspill, you got to have that flat shovel to really get in there and scrape at that ground and get enough of a line onto that ground to get underneath that sealer. Because when you're using a spade shovel, you got that point on there, and unless you're like scooping it sideways weird like, you're not going to get any sealer, and it's going to be a real pain in your ass to get it on that shovel. But the flat shovel, you can get the sealer on there pretty good and then rinse it off with some water, which is another thing. You want some water on your crew. This is probably an urgent message right here. Make sure you have water of some kind, whether it be a gallon jug that's got a hole in the tip that you can just squirt out, or a spray bottle, or a shit, I don't even, in one of those coolers, you got the little button on the side that you can get some water out. You know, one of those athletic coolers, the Gatorade coolers, basically. You got one of those that you can get water out of. You're going to need that, because when you make a little mess, you're going to want to clean it up. You do not want to leave messes. And be very vigilant on your brushing. Don't splash. I'm just throwing this out there because I'm mentioning the water. The less water you have to use, the better. But you're going to end up having to use it. The best of us make mistakes. So just have that water on hand and ready for those situations. Quick mention for whip string. Whip string comes in different gauges. Look at the specifications for your weed whip or your weed whip head. If you're buying a new weed whip head, it'll give you the diameter. At least it should give you at least a max diameter of the gauge you can use. And if you're doing driveways, I would just max it out. Max out the gauge. Trust me, it's worth it. No, the bigger the better with the gauge. Now we're going to go into some of the actual asphalt tools. I'm sorry, seal coat tools. And we're going to start with the V-Squeegy. The V-Squeegy is basically, it's just basically a piece of rubber that's formed into a V shape so that you can corral lines of rubber that are laid out and make it straight and flat. And it's laid out for you by this contraption right here, which is called a pour pot. It basically lets rubber out the very bottom. So this pour pot is controlled by a little finger trigger on top. Using it, you can get real good at using it. Some people have a hard time at first, but you end up getting a chick after a little while. Now the V-Squeegy is used by just pulling it behind you. You got to put a lot of pressure down to make sure that you're not leaving any thick, because you want this to push down into the crack and then be flat on the surface. That's your whole entire goal with this thing. Get it in the hole, leave a flat line on the top. No big splooge marks or drool lines or anything like that. You just got to be careful. Now once you end up learning the tool, it's actually a pretty fun tool to use. The other rubber laying item is the bander. Now the bander is a one-man item. So if you're out there and you're trying to do all this all by yourself, guess what? You can. Because the one thing you would have a problem with doing by yourself is the rubber, unless you use the bander. The bander, you fill it with rubber, you walk backwards with it. So you got to kind of watch what you're doing. You got to know where you're going, kind of eyeball the crack out that you're on, and be able to kind of make some adjustments on the fly with it. You got to get it nice and hot on the bottom. There's little tricks to the trade in using this thing, also trigger activated. But eventually this thing will wear out on the bottom, and you'll have to either add more to the bottom with a welder and grinder and grind it right and get it right, or just buy a new one. But usually, if this thing wears out on the bottom where you're having a hard time getting a flat line anymore, that's a good thing. That means you've gotten full use out of this bad boy. The other item is the Metel Bristle Broom, which this is the killer, bro. This thing is what can really make or break some of the quality in your work. If you have a job that's got some nasties on it, some dirt, some craggly cracks with some shit in them, using this or not using this can really make or break whether somebody calls you back or not. Believe it or not, this tool is probably one of the most important quality tools you will have on your truck, and you better use it. If you want to set yourself above the average Joe just starting out with his little kitchen broom, trying to clean a driveway off with it, the fly-by-nighter guy, this is your item. And they're not, they're like $40 or something, dude, for a head. For $45, these will last you, unless you beat the shit out of them. They will last you a while. We've had some that have lasted 2-3 seasons with us, and we beat the shit out of these things. They look so bad in the end, it looks like a afro on the end and straight in the middle, because we've just curled the ends of these things up so bad on the end. And the one last thing I'm going to mention for the seal coat setup is carpet. Carpet, dry carpet. Don't want wet carpet. Wet carpet makes a bigger mess than you made without it. Get yourself some dry carpet, store it away. Go find yourself a job site that they're throwing it away. Say, hey man, I'll take your haul for you. And just get yourself a couple tear out jobs worth of carpet that are tossed to the side in your shop somewhere. And you cut them in squares, you throw them in the back of your truck, and when you get off the residential job, you wipe your feet off. There's other people who, like Still Coating His Life, these guys wear rubber boots on the job, and they get to the end of the job, they take their rubber boots off, and they slip their shoes back on. That's another way to do it. There's maybe even less risk in making a mistake and making a mess when you do it like that. However, I find that if you're doing buckets in that, the carpet still is good for setting under the back of the trailer for drips and accidental spillages with the buckets. So regardless, the carpet's good to have for those 2 reasons, and those 2 reasons are huge reasons. You know, that's another one of those things that either you're professional or you're not. Carpet really can make you professional. You ain't gotta have the best carpet in the back. It just gotta be some regular ass carpet, but it's gotta be dry. It's gotta be dry carpet so that when you wipe your feet off on it, you're not getting your feet re-wet, so that as soon as you take a step off, you're just putting footprints everywhere. So now we're going to move on to the asphalt. The asphalt isn't necessarily as intense as far as having tools. You're going to have your couple milk crates that's going to have your tools in them. The tool's going to be a little different. You're going to want your adjustable wrench for your propane, because you are going to have propane. But the propane isn't going to be for melting rubber. It's going to be for connecting to the lance torch. The lance torches, they're made for power. These things will burn through you so fast. You got to be very careful with these things. There's been a number of guys who've lost body hair, half a shirt. I mean, there's guys who've gotten a little burned off them. I'm not going to lie. You can touch it, burn yourself like that. It'll take your skin right off. Very, very dangerous tool, but very effective for what you're using it for. You're going to have shovels on this crew just like the other one, but you're going to have both. You're going to have your flat shovels, and you're going to have your spade shovels, because sometimes you're going to remove some earth. You're going to remove a little bit of yard and extend driveways, or create even an area for the driveway to be. Just make sure you have both sets. You're going to have your hand tamps. Tamps are used in areas where you can't get your roller or your duck shoes effectively. And duck shoes are great, but you can't really put a lot of pressure on them like you can. A tamp will really beat that stuff in. So you got to have your hand tamp. You want your pick to be able to get loose aggregate and break up chunks of old asphalt. Your sledgehammer, same thing. To remove stuff, you're going to want to break it up. You're gonna want your wheelbarrow to hike your stuff back to the truck to throw it on, or whatever whatever to the trailer or whatever you're throwing it in. You're gonna have your asphalt duck shoes. Now these are good for, like I said, areas that you can't get the roller, or if you got to get out somewhere with a hand tamp, you can't walk out there with your regular shoes. So you make your way out with the duck shoes. They leave a nice flat imprint on the asphalt, and they compact it at an even rate under your feet. You're gonna want your scraper, your 5-in-1. Those, it's good for cleaning your shoes off. It's good for cleaning tools off. You're going to want your diesel fuel can. It's just like the red can, but it's yellow, marked for diesel. Because obviously, you can't use gas and diesel interchangeable unless you're just lighting a fire willy-nilly. But diesel's not really good for lighting fire. You want gas for that. But anyway, if you want the fire to burn longer, I guess you would use the diesel. It's better for torches, I guess you could say. Why am I talking about this? I don't know. But you have your fuel. Now your fuel is going to be also used to lubricate your tools, your lutes, your shovels. So you're going to want to have like a spray bottle or even a spray can. Some of these pump sprayers are really nice. They do the job really quick. Now just remember, diesel cans, they end up blowing out seals. So if you buy a sprayer, get a couple seal kits with it, because you're going to end up changing them out eventually. The petroleum products just break down other petroleum products, so it just eats the rubber away. And it happens with spray bottles very quickly. And we went through a couple of these pump sprayers as well. So just remember, get yourself a couple seal kits for the pump sprayers, and get extra bottles, because they do go bad pretty quickly. Your truck that you're using, like we have a truck and trailer setup that pulls the roller. We use the RD12 roller. Just bought a brand new one last year. The roller trailer will have the roller on it. It'll have a wheelbarrow on it typically. And it will have a brush barrel with brushes in it. The truck that pulls that will carry all the tack coat, which is basically what we call our asphalt binder is tack coat. It'll have that on the back of the truck. It'll have the water supply that we use. This is our setup. These are the things we use for our water supply. It's a 250-gallon setup. It's used to fill the roller. It's got a direct hose feed that we can pull right up with the roller and fill right up with it. It also has all the tools on it. I mentioned the picks and the sledgehammers. The lutes we usually put on the truck because they got the long tops on them. Now you can stick them on the asphalt trailers. They have little slots for them, but they end up getting stuck in there. It's hard to get them out sometimes. So we just don't bother with it. We just throw them in the back of the truck. You obviously have at least the one wheelbarrow on the trailer, but we usually carry 2 or 3 wheelbarrows when we're going out with the fleet, just so we have enough for everybody to get everything done. You also have gasoline for your weed whips and stuff, so you're going to have 2 different cans, one diesel, one gas. You're going to have both when you go out for asphalt. You're also going to have what's called a plate whacker. We just call it the whacker, with a motor on it basically, and you just run it over. It's used to, if you don't have a roller, it's what you would use to compact your asphalt. The roller obviously works best, it's the easiest to use, but you can get away with a whacker on any job really. You may have to do more lifts, and what a lift is it's a set amount of asphalt. Like if you have a 12-inch hole, you do 3 lifts. You do 4, 4, and 4, right? 4 inches, 4 inches, and 4 inches. So that way you're not trying to compact every bit of it at one time. It won't have the correct rate. Whackers you may have to do, instead of doing 3 lifts, you may have to do 4 because the plate doesn't compact as much as the roller does. So that's really the only difference, is you run into that problem with the bigger patches. It's definitely the bigger patches and the thicker patches. You're going to want to have a roller if you can. If not, you can get away with a whacker with anything. It's obviously going to take a little more time. You're going to have your weed whips and blowers just like with the residential rig, because you're going to want to clean up edges on residential jobs before you repair the asphalt on them if it goes that far. The blower obviously to clean up all the loose aggregate and the mess you make while doing your asphalt. You're going to want a scraper of some kind, or at least a shovel, a good clean shovel to clean up all the hard debris that's stuck to the asphalt when you're done on your patches. You're going to want the metal broom, same thing. It kind of helps you clean up your edges before you roll them. You can pop your edges real good with that metal broom if you're, as long as you know how to use it. Like I said, you get your propane, your lance torches. That keeps things dry. It does what they call breaking the tack coat, which is it goes on kind of like a brown liquid. Get it to bubble a little bit, flash up, and you're good to go. And of course the torch is also used for drying up all the wet spots before we start, because a lot of times you can patch it if it's damp out. You just got to use the torch to dry the area first. And of course burning all the material off of the tools. The tack brushes we use are, again, they're the 7-inch roofing brushes, the same thing we use to cut in for our seal coat. It's just used for tack coat, but it's the same purpose. You also have your marking paint, which is what the foreman will go around with, and he'll mark out an area. You then take your chalk box and chalk, and you go just outside the area he marks, just enough to cover his paint up, and you chalk it. And that chalk line is what we use to put the tack coat down in a straight line and make sure everything looks uniform and professional. And sometimes we have what's called an R&R, which is basically a remove and replace. And in order to do that correctly, you have to saw it out to give it that professional squared off look and get down all the way and get it all out. So you got to have your saw. This is the saw we use right here. It can be a real pain in the ass. It doesn't go fast, especially when it's real thick, but it really does a good job. Take care of it. Try not to bind up your blades or anything, because these things are super expensive to replace. If you go and try and get like the 3 for $300 pack, it's you might as well just buy the 1 for $350, dude, because it'll last as long as those 3 last. It really does. It makes you feel like you're getting more when you buy the 3 blades, but you're just getting a better product when you buy the $300 one. So it really, do you want to change your blades 3 times, or you want to change them once? That's kind of what you're up to with that one. But everything I mentioned right here is pretty much all you got to have for your diesel setup and your asphalt box preparation. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do. If you have an R&R, you can just throw the stuff on the back of the truck, take it to the asphalt plant, dump it there. Or you can get a trailer and just use the dump trailer. There's lots of ways to get that done as well. And we've done every bit of everything, pretty much, when it comes to getting our patches done. There's sometimes you're going to run into things like doing curbs and stuff, and you can buy special curb creation tools that basically it's just a bent piece of metal that's shaped like a curb that you use to pack in, kind of. And you pack snow in the wintertime, that good pack of snow between your hands and make a good snowball. That's basically what you're doing with these things. You're putting up a bunch of asphalt, and then you're just packing it in with that thing. And there's actually curb. You can get really intricate with these things, but you don't really need all that. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the rubber setup. And the rubber setup comes with these melters. And it's really simple. You take a bunch of rubber with you. You take the Cam 10, all 3 of them if you have our big setup, and you take all your pour pots, all your V-squeegees, sand if you need to backfill the heavy cracks with sand, and then you just fill the melters and work out of the melters. There are melters that have a molasses valve on them, and there are melters that have a wand attached to them. We have both. The wand is great for if you have a nice run that's kind of like the width of a driveway, maybe an average driveway. You can get that whole swath with the wand, and if it's really bad cracks and you're trying to make a real good showing, the wand is probably your best way because you can get it done really quick. It's a non-stop flow of rubber, and you can really get in a groove with getting the major areas done that look really bad. If you're not trying to make a good showing and you're just trying to, they know like, hey man, I ain't gonna be able to get it all, and I can only afford about 10,000 linear this year. Well then, just use the Cam 10 and some pour pots, and you can fly with that a lot quicker than trying to move this truck and trailer around just for some quick linear runs of, you know what I mean? So there's the right tool for the right job in this instance. Now it's not bad to have. You can cut off certain areas with the wand and say, I'm going to do this whole section. Well, you guys do that, because I can get in and out of here real easy with this wand, and it'll cut off this whole section. And it takes 2 guys to run the wand. One guy has to do the truck pulling up, and one guy actually has to run the wand. And there's a communication with beeps. You beep to go forward, you beep to stop, and you double beep if you want somebody to back up. So it's beep, beep. That's start, stop. Beep, beep, beep. That's back up. Okay, good, stop. So you're stopping to start. You're beeping to start, you're beeping to stop, and you're double beeping if the starting has to start backwards. Hope you get that. So you're going to bring also your cleaning equipment. So your whips, your blowers, scrub brush, your torches, all your propanes that you need. You want lance head torches, and you want the regular torches. Really the only reason you need the lance head torches is because sometimes you got to clean these Cam 10s up, and it's just easier to use the torch real quick, the fast torch. And plus it's good to have it's just good to have around. Plus you're going to be using up a lot of your regulator torches for the Cam 10s. So the more torches you have, the better on a day like this, for us anyway. Now, remember, when I speak a lot of these things, I'm speaking about our setup. And you can have your own setup that has its own needs. So if you only have one Cam 10 and you have 2 regulator torches, well, that's probably all you need. Then you got plenty. So that's going to conclude my talk on these items. These are all of our basic breakdowns. I've included some prices in here. I haven't really went and added anything myself. I just wanted to kind of throw them at you so that you had some numbers if you were looking. If you had any questions on what we used, how we use it, why we use it, then I hope I answered them here. If there's anything I haven't answered, please leave a question in the comment for me. I don't always get back timely to these questions, but I do answer every question that comes through here. I will try to be better on the timeliness of it and try to get back to you with a workable answer. If there's any tools that I didn't include in here that you think you should have as a seal coater, please leave that in the comment as well. Any other questions or concerns, please leave in the comments. I do want to see what you guys think about all this stuff. And don't forget, guys, like and subscribe to this stuff if this means anything to you at all. If you thought this brought you any kind of value, it'll really help guys like Nick here out. It'll also let me know that you guys like this kind of stuff, that you guys like me showing you the kind of setups we have and going over some of the products and the pricing and looking at the work that we do. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching, and we will see you out on the flat black in the next one.